Hi, my name is Joe Wardell. I was former sergeant in the 14th with Staff Sergeant McCollum. We were in the same company, the Hooligans, and that's how I know him. We deployed together. Mac, as a person and soldier, my favorite thing about Sergeant McCollum was always his personality. When I think of Sergeant Mac, I think of someone who was kind of goofy, but he was the subject matter expert on everything. And when I thought about him and just his reputation, he was always known as one of the best NCOs, kind of at an elite level. If you thought about um, everything about the militaries in a hierarchy, and he was just at the top of that hierarchy for his NCO class, and he knew everything. He was goofy. He did great in physical fitness tests and everything, and he's just somebody that everybody looked up to. Um, my funny or favorite memory of Mac. I can't think of anything specific. I thought about this for a while. I think it was just generally um, when you're around him, he was just a funny guy. And I don't know what to say about him beyond that. He just somebody that everybody liked. And yet he was firm. He filled his role when he had to, and he put you in your place. But he was just a funny guy to be around, and his demeanor was in this climate of being very rigid. He just had this really glowing personality about him, and I like Mac a lot. Everybody liked Mac a lot. Um, then one of the harder things to talk about. Probably gonna cry no matter what, so I'll jump into it. December 7th, um, Mac had joined our platoon because he was a subject matter expert, and he was one of the better ones. And he went out on a mission with us. He wouldn't normally be in our platoon, and there were two parts to this mission, and he was there for both parts. But we rolled out on the first part, which would have been very routine route clearance, and we get down on a route called Chilliwack, and it was known to be bad in its own way, relatively speaking. Like, we would usually find an IED or something in there, but on this particular mission, Mac was with us to be dismount, and they were gonna. This wasn't something we regularly did. It was something that occurred frequently, though. But in this particular part, they were going to get on the ground. They were going to sweep around and see if they could find either people hiding or look for command wire so that the vehicles it give like a kind of a safety net for the vehicles. If they could find the wire, they could find the ID. So I was a gunner that day, which is not something I would normally do either. Normally, I was when I'd be in short, just in layman's terms, in the front passenger side of a vehicle. I normally was a person who would interrogate IEDs. This particular day, I'm gunner, and I'm with Sergeant Grimes and Barbosa, and I believe Logan was the extra guy in our back, and Barbosa would have been driving, Grimes in the front. So we pull up. Grimes gets out with the other dismounts. I couldn't name them all. I know First Sergeant Gordius was there. Sergeant McCollum would have been there. Grimes was there, and there would have been some other people on the ground. And they go and they start coming out and around our vehicles, and they come under fire. And I was in a good position in that sense. We pulled our vehicle up, had a line of fire. I looked for targets, and I remember I could see where they were shooting, and I'd lay some fire where I saw them shooting, and Grimes shot the infamous 203 round. That legend has it. Hit a guy directly in the chest. And I'll leave it as a legend. I got his insight on that later, but I could see where it landed, and I remember laying fire on that, and just kind of cleaning out that area. And I saw somebody come up from the top of a rooftop, and I laid into him too. And I just remember shooting 400 rounds, and I felt like I had really accurate fire. Felt really good. And by the time, from my perspective, a lot of things happened on the ground. They were firing. When that 400 rounds was done, I know at that time, the firefight was over. And I remember looking down at all this brass and thinking like, wow, this just happened. And at that time, everybody's safe. It was cool. It was fun. It's one of those things you train for, and you kind of look forward to, because you want to, you go to combat, you want to test yourself. And I remember thinking how after this mission, I was going to sit and have breakfast with Sergeant Grimes and talk about how freaking cool that was. And I love Sergeant Grimes. And that just, it's something I look forward to. And at that point in time, it was one of the best days I'd had over there. And we'd had a lot of close calls and stuff. Nobody had been hurt at this point, though. Nobody had been seriously injured. So it was kind of cool at that point, having a good morning. Well, we continue on, and they go and they sweep around, and they come around to a building, and they, from what I'm told, they see some people, and I remember the radio chatter, they hear some people kind of congregating on that side, moving towards them, and they want to get a better vantage point. So they go up on top of the building, and Reed knew that there was a little bit of risk. They had been known to booby trap the buildings, and sure as shit they had. And they got up there. I know from talking to Grimes a little bit of what happened from their perspective, but McCollum was up there first, and he split, and he took the spot that Grimes would have taken. So Grimes took the secondary spot. One went one way, one went the other. I don't remember who went what way, but when Grimes took a knee, there was a pressure plate there, from what I understand, and it blew up. And at the time, I had thought that they had found an IED that was just sitting there, and I thought it was the IED in our route we were sitting on. I thought that had gone off, which happens, and it's not that big of a deal. You hear explosions over there all the time. But that's not what happened. I didn't know until Barbosa, the driver, it's hard to talk about, so forgive me for that, but Barbosa is saying, oh no, no. Grimes and Mac were up there. I remember looking ahead, and you could see this big cloud of smoke where an idea got off, and you knew, like, shit had just gotten bad. And so we're calling on the radio, and of course there's radio comm issues. And we're trying to get the medic from the back of the convoy all the way up front. I remember getting so pissed off because I wouldn't go back, and they knew, or I felt like clearly there's a situation, get the goddamn medic to the front. And we were talking on they had these ham mics that day because we had people on the ground, and it wasn't that good, and they started talking. I didn't want to talk over them. I knew the comm situation was fucked up. I had Barbosa pull up front and get front side security, and they're calling for people to get down on the ground to help out with this medevac. And so I had pulled up to the front at that point, and then I had him pull back a bit, and Jordan must have got up on the gun. I got out of the back. I got on the ground, and as I come up to this building that's collapsed now, there were some people that they had found Mac, and our big fear was, he'd fallen down. They weren't going to find this guy, and he was going to die in the rubble. But they had found him, and they were, they had him on the stretcher. They're taking him out, and so but Grimes is still up on top of this building, and I ran up there, and I remember First Sergeant Gordy's was up there, and really calm on the spot with everything, and Grimes is on the ground, and he had a face injury, and it was on the left side of his face, and it looked pretty bad, and uh, didn't know if he could see. It seemed like at the time he was saying he would just kind of sit in darkness, and I'm laughing because he looked pretty fucked up. And he's saying how his whole body hurts, but he's like, I'll get up and walk out of here if I have to, because we're having a hard time getting one of the I want to say gurney, but one of the stretchers up there to take him out, because he had to climb up this rubble and all this shit. And Grimes just mean tough as fuck. And they didn't have a first aid kit up there, so First Sergeant Gordy sent me down to get the medic. And we got one medic, and she's treating Sergeant Mac. And she just says, like, there's a first aid bag. So I grab the bag, I run back up there, and First Sergeant Gordius is doing first aid. He's wrapping up Grimes' face, and we get him on the stretcher, and we get him down. And I remember, I don't even want to say it. It's pretty fucked up, but it's reality. I just remember Mac being in so much pain that he wanted to be set down and just shot. He was feeling he just wanted, not shot. I think he had said, like, just put me down and let me die. It was fucked up. And then we had to clear, make sure that there was a spot for the helicopter to land. And they came pretty quick. And we got them all loaded up, got them in there. And then we had to sit and wonder what the hell is going to happen with these guys. And we go back in the vehicles, and you can never describe what that feels like. Everybody's just quiet and like dead inside. And it is the most demoralizing experience of your life. And we still had a mission to do. And we're waiting on EOD to come out and get this last ID. There was something about this ID that was unique. And I don't remember exactly what it was, if it was a new style or whatever it was. But we're waiting for them to come out and having to keep everybody focused. It was a fucking strain. But we ended up going back. At some point, everything gets done. We go back to our base, and they had a different platoon take over the mission. And that's, out of the many experiences I've had there, that's the one I dwell on the most. And I think it's because, one, it's the first event where we had some serious injuries, and it's the one that kind of punctured that feeling of invincibility. We'd all trained together, just felt like when we're all out there, nothing had happened. And part of it too was the way we saw these two, and Grimes and Mac were, like I said, they were elite level NCOs, and if it could happen to them, it could happen to anyone, because they were hands down better than me for sure. So that was that day. That'll never leave. Then what would I say to Mac today if I were with him was nothing of that. I can't even fathom what that would have been like from your perspective. And there's a lot of layers to that, and it's really complicated. And I remember going back and First Sergeant Gordius saying, like, tuck in your boo-boo lip, because it didn't happen to you. And he's right. That's one perspective, and that's fair. Um, and the last thing anybody would want is, the rest of us being miserable, and I understand that, but it's hard to separate all that. And what I'd say to Mac is, you know, that experience doesn't change who you are. And you're always going to be that guy that performs at a high level. And I'm hearing and reading about the Paralympics and your tryouts for that. And I have no doubt in my mind you're going to make it because that's who you are. And a lot of us, I don't want to add pressure to you, but a lot of us, we look up to you and how you respond to all of this. And I guess I'd say this from the heart. I know you will do this, and I know it's going to be hard, and I know you're going to compete against a high level of competition, but one day you, and when times get tough and you're having a hard time, I know you can do it for yourself, and I want you to do it for yourself, but when times get tough, do it for the rest of us too. We love you. That's all I got to say. Thanks.